Joining me, Leicestershire Police and Crime Commissioner Rupert Mathews. Rupert, to start with, tell us a bit about yourself.
Oh, crikey. I'm a historian, is my background here. I'm out of London originally. My father was born within the sound of Bow Bells, so proper Cockney. I went to the local Church of England junior school, which was, unlike a lot of these ones, it was actually still quite closely connected to the church. The church had paid for the bill. I think the church still actually owned the land, thinking about it. But the vicar would come in at least once a week and take a class for the children. We went to the church every week and had, if you like, the religious assembly there. So it was quite a close link to the Church of England when I was at junior school. I then went to the grammar school when I was 11, even though I failed my 11 plus. Everyone sort of talks about the 11 plus exam. I failed the 11 plus, but the headmaster of my junior school wrote a recommendation to the head teacher at the grammar school about me, and so I managed to get in, which was great. Really enjoyed my time at secondary school. Loved history. I just fell in love with history, I think when I was probably about 12 or 13. Left school, got a job working. First job was in local newspapers. Then I did some features at the Daily Mail. Then I moved into books and magazines after that. And I've been freelance, I suppose, maybe about 20, 25 years. Not just working in publishing, I also do consultancy for television shows and movie companies and stuff. But pretty much always working in history. And my period is a medieval period, but, when you're doing something for a living, you do all sorts of other things as well.
What's your favourite book?
Oh, now there's a very interesting question. I think, and this is going to sound slightly odd, Three Men in a Boat. It's a book I read when I was at school. I suppose I was about 13 or 14 years old when I first read it, and thought it was really funny, very amusing. I read it again, I suppose, when I was in my 30s, and appreciated a lot more about it because it was written in Victorian times and obviously for a Victorian audience. When I'd first read it, I sort of got the jokes and thought it was funny. When I read it the second time, I could appreciate actually there's quite a lot of history in here. And then I read it again about 2-3 years ago and got even more out of it because the guy who wrote it, Jerome K. Jerome, was a real social campaigner. He was trying to, get changes made. And so he wasn't just writing about the society he knew, which was sort of late Victorian middle class London. He was also trying to get changes. And so there were all sorts of characters in there where he's writing about the social injustices of the period and trying to get things changed. So it's a great book. It works on different levels. As a teenager, I thought it was just a funny book with lots of jokes. When I was a bit older, I was getting a lot of historical knowledge out of it. And then more recently, I began to realise, actually, no, this was for the time, this was a really good bit of social campaigning journalism, but of course done in their time and in their way. But it's a great book.
What's your favourite destination for holiday?
Italy. I love Italy, I'm afraid. First of all, the food and drink is great. So if you're going on holidays, it's just a really enjoyable place to be. But the artwork, gosh, the museums in Florence, because of course the Medici put together such a huge art collection. And then when the line died out, the stipulation of bequeathing it was that it had to stay in Florence. And so they're not allowed to move it outside Florence. The artworks in Rome are fantastic. Milan is a beautiful city. So destination, Italy. Of those three, which are my favourite cities, I suppose I'd go for Rome, I think.
What's your favourite food?
Food, it's a split actually, isn't it? I mean, it's an Englishman living in Leicestershire. I suppose this is almost predictable. I love a nice Sunday roast. I was brought up, my mother did a Sunday roast every single Sunday. The full works, roast meat, roast potatoes, a lot. But when I moved down, I was in a little bedsit in South London. Of course, you're a young man about town. What do you get a taste for? You get a taste for curry, don't you? So, and then having moved up here, I've realised how much more there is to food from the Indian subcontinent than what I thought a curry was when I was living down in South London. And there's just so much more to it, and exploring the different types of cuisine. So I'm split. A Sunday roast when I'm at home doing it myself. If I'm eating out, it's got to be a curry.
Rupert, you're a historian. How you come police crime commissioner?
Moved up here quite a few years ago now, and when they were looking for somebody to stand for the Conservative Party Police and Crime Commission, I thought, well, when I was in London, I had a real interest in keeping people safe, particularly on the streets, because I was on the council there. And I thought, this could be a really interesting job. This could be something that I can really make a contribution to society and really make a difference. So I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And I got myself elected. And so for the past, year and 4 months, I've been Police and Crime Commissioner.
Tell us a bit about your day-to-day role.
As the name suggests, police and crime, there are two aspects to this. So take the police part first, because this is a bit that I think most people are going to come in contact with. My job is to set the strategy and to set the budget. So every year I sit down with the Chief Constable and we decide, okay, so what's the strategy going to be this year? What are we going to concentrate on? What are we going to try and deal with this year? And then allocate the budget to it. So this year, with the big hike in the rise of energy, one of the problems we've got is being able to afford the fuel for all the police vehicles, because you can't have a 999 call come in and say, oh, sorry, we've run out of petrol. They're not sending it. You can't do it. We have to pay for the fuel. But fuel costs have gone up enormously, so we're going to have to find the money to pay for that from elsewhere within the budget. So if you like, that's the police side of it. And then the Chief Constable implements the strategy and the budget on a day-to-day basis, okay? And then I check up on a rolling programme that he's actually doing what he's supposed to be doing. Invariably, so far, he has been, which is great news. So that's the police side. The crime bit is really about crime prevention. Now, in part, that is things like providing vulnerable people with better window locks or better front door lock. But it's also taking people who are coming out of prison, trying to find them jobs, try and find them somewhere to live so that they can have a stable life and hopefully then won't fall back into their criminal ways, because the best way to stop somebody committing crime is to get them a decent job, that without doubt. We also do a lot of work with young people who are sort of, if you like, showing the signs that they haven't got into criminal activity yet, but they're sort of following the path where they sort of might be. So we do a lot of work with them to try and keep them on straight and narrow, keep them on the right side of the law. So there's a huge amount of work. Then there's witness support, victim support. So if you've been a victim of crime, it's my office that funds the support to help you try and recover from the crime, to support you if you're going to court as a witness for a crime. We help to support you and explain what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. So it's a very varied role. It covers a lot of ground and it is absolutely fascinating. I'm so enjoying it. It's so interesting doing the job.
Rupert, Leicester City, compared to Leicestershire, is a very diverse community. He's brought his own challenge.
The population, like I say, is very diverse. About 3/4 of people live in Leicestershire and Rutland, and about 1/4 live in the city. Across Leicestershire and Rutland, it is actually in its way quite diverse, because you've got market town like Melton Mowbray, you've got ex-mining villages like Colville, and then you've got little rural villages like Hallerton, for instance. So the population in the county is in its way quite varied, but nothing like as varied as the population inside the city. And it has been a real adventure. I mean, obviously, I've lived here for some years and I'll come into the city, but as a resident of one of the villages out in Leicestershire, mainly I've come into the city to go shopping, to have a meal out, to go to the cinema, go to the theatre, that sort of stuff. And as Police and Crime Commissioner, I'm coming into the city much more to get to know people. One of the most interesting parts of my job is to find out what people want from the police and then take that message to the police, so the Chief Constable and I can work out how to try and provide the service that people want. And that means getting to know communities, getting to talk to people, And it's been absolutely fascinating. Only last night I was at one of the Hindu temples for their New Year celebrations, which I really enjoyed. They had a group of children recreating one of the stories about Hanuman and meeting an evil king and a beautiful princess and stuff. It was fantastic. I loved it. But also sometimes it's not just a case of meeting community leaders or business owners or religious leaders. I like to make the time just to sit in a cafe, and talk to the owner of the cafe, and depending on the reaction I get, maybe to some of the customers as well. So just, people that happen to be about, and talk to them. I'll explain who I am. I say I'm the Police and Crime Commissioner, and just to talk to them about what are their expectations of the police, what are their expectations of law and order in a busy city like Leicester. You know what? It is so interesting, and it's a great part of my job, because that is actually part of my job, to talk to people and feed that back to the police. And it's been a real adventure getting to know all different types of people from all different sorts of communities and backgrounds. Absolutely fascinating.
Last few weeks, Leicester had a few issues. What's your view on that?
The one basic thing I've got to get across, and I really do got to get this across, is people have to take responsibility for their actions. There is no excuse at all for going out onto a street and getting involved in trouble. Okay, if you get involved in a fight and you punch somebody, if you get involved in something, you smash someone's window, you turn a car over, the only person to blame for that is you. And the police are under no doubt that I and the public expect them to catch people who break the law and to get that case to court if they possibly can, to make sure people are punished. We've already had several convictions from the recent trouble. One person, I think, was sentenced to 10 months in prison, and that is absolutely right. I understand, of course, people feel strongly about different things. The way to deal with that is peacefully, through talking, through negotiation, from making your views expressed. As I said in answer to one of your earlier questions, just me getting out and meeting people, it's great to do that and get to know what people are thinking. So I understand tempers are high, I understand people are worked up about things, but there is no excuse at all for getting involved in violence. And if you do get involved in violence, the police are going to be coming and trying to get you prosecuted for doing that. The important thing is for everyone to stay calm and everyone to try and resolve these things peacefully, because they can be resolved peacefully. I've listened to people from all different sorts of communities about what's happened over the past few weeks. And the main thing I've been thinking is, actually, do you know what? You've got a point, but we can sort that out, okay? There is no need for violence at all. And it is the job of people such as myself, as Police and Crime Commissioner, as the Mayor, of councillors, of members of Parliament, to make sure that there are peaceful routes for differences to be resolved, and then get it done so that we can all live together peacefully.
Thank you very much for your time, and all the best.
Thank you.